Now we're live. Okay, there we go. A little bit of a time delay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, we're a little bit behind schedule today, and we've got a busy days for ourselves ahead. So we're going to try and kind of chomp through a few things real quick. So first thing, we always talk about stats. So I'm going to again share a screen here with some statistics. This is a daily update from the Calgary Real Estate Board. So let me see, daily. Yeah. So really, the interesting stuff here, we've talked about this a little bit in the last couple of months, that we're starting to see a shift. If we look at the percent change here for total sales, this is year over year, sales are down 16%. This month, year over year, if we look back to August as a total month, down 20%. Active listings up 37% as of August, and in September up 50%. This is a complete reversal of what we saw last year. If we say September 2023 over 2022, sales were up 15%. Listings were down probably 20%. And so we're going in the opposite direction. I think this is an indicator, if anybody's watching the market, it's an indicator that we're going to be shifting from that strong seller's market to balanced, if we're not already there. So
yeah, it looks like it's more indicative of what was 2022, I think. But it's interesting to point out that, and of course everybody knows we go into the summer doldrums, so we expect that it's going to be slower during the summer, and from Stampede Week on until September 1st kind of thing. That's sort of an annual cycle that we always expect. And
I'll just jump in, with the exception of the COVID years.
Yeah, that's correct.
So maybe the stats are reflecting a return to normal more than anything. I don't
know. Yeah. So given that, so we expect that, and then it's interesting because in September you always wonder, okay, is it going to come back, or is that a trend that's going to continue? And so that's where we're kind of at right now, and it looks like it might be a trend that's, I don't know if it's going to continue to drop, but I think it's going to maybe maintain a slower pace than we were getting used to earlier on.
Yeah, with my anecdotal discussions with brokers around town, they're saying the deal volume is still really high. So maybe we'll see a reversal in October, or at least a flattening out of that trend.
Yeah, it can also be, I guess you could call it profit taking. But so people, think there's an opportunity. They see prices going up. They put their property on for a pretty generous price, maybe more generous than they should, and so maybe we have to adjust our attitude to be more tighter on pricing, and not build in the fat that we were building in the spring, expecting to get a higher price. So I think that it's a change in expectation as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Good comments. Good point. Maybe really quickly, kind of talking about numbers, why don't we just touch on interest rates a little bit? We did see another rate cut in the last couple of weeks. Interest rates are down, which is good, and we're still seeing buyers, I think, relatively slow to react, and I think because on the heels of the interest rate cut, there's news that there's going to be further cuts, and so there is not a huge incentive to act today. There's actually incentive to wait.
Exactly. And that's that really is a good point, because that feeds into our previous point about the market. And we've said this before, when interest rates are going down, buyers hold back. They wait for rates to go down further. If they're when they're going up, people jump into the market to try and get in before they go up any further. So what you want to do if you're a buyer today, for sure you want to be taking out a variable rate mortgage, because you can always, in almost every case, you can always lock in a variable rate mortgage to a 5-year. And I would do that, you would expect to do that maybe in a year or two when rates have kind of bottomed back out again. So where they're at more manageable rates, but they're going to come down. I think we're going to get at least a quarter point every announcement, maybe more. They were expecting perhaps a half a point in the last announcement. So, yeah.
So, just some expectations again in terms of market activity. I think we're going to see some buyers still holding back, and who knows, maybe that's factoring into why we're seeing some slower sales today as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Next topic I want to bring up. We just talked a little before our podcast here about renovations and maybe how you could repurpose, reuse some older houses. Yeah. It's interesting, and so it's something that is of, I think, keen interest to both of us. Not just we're not just in real estate sales, of course. We've all renovated homes, and it's an interesting subject for us. So, I had a meeting with a structural engineer this morning to talk about how a house could be, just to review the stability of the house, and it was an encouraging meeting. That is, his comments were that the biggest issues were water that are affecting, and we see this all the time. How water can impact a foundation, the stability of a house, the appearance of the house. And so, his recommendations were really a lot around water management and very little around rebuilding structure, which is encouraging because it's labor intensive, but it's not expensive.
Well, that's, it's very insightful. Like, water management is the most important thing. We are involved with quite a few heritage buildings, have been, and right now we're just in the process of sort of reviewing our work plan for the Glenwood Manor, which I'm involved with. Glenwood Manor is one of the old, it's a beautiful old heritage building on Memorial Drive, 904 and 908 Memorial Drive, right at the foot of the Peace Bridge, if anybody doesn't know it. So, great heritage building, provincial and municipal designation. In considering our work plan for the building, and I've talked with many experts in heritage, restoration and so on, and did a number of them. In fact, and I'm proud to say the last building I worked on as a carpenter was the McDougall Center, which is a beautiful heritage building as well. So I know a little bit about these things. It's always water management. So the potential for water damage bumps anything to the top of the list, because that's the prime cause of degradation in any building. So if you can manage the water, you eliminate any rotting and pooling of water, things like that. That is always the highest priority. So in terms of maintenance, and even in light of the last day or two of heavy rain, a guy should go out and check, where you've got water pooling around the foundation, in your roof, if there's any areas on the roof where it's leaking underneath the soffits and things like that. Those are the areas to really pay attention to. And Daniel, you were mentioning, let's talk about the building code and the change to the building code, the advice you got there. That's interesting.
Yeah, so there's, the subject property is 1920, roughly,
well,
I think.
1912, right?
Yeah. So it's 100 years old or more. Obviously, there's changes to the building code, and so we have to consider what impacts, to the extent that we want to renovate this house, what impact does the new building code and the new energy components of the building code, how does that factor in? Obviously, there's costs involved, but there could be, it could present some solutions to some challenges that we're facing with respect to water management. So it's, for example, adding outsolation rather than insulation to the house is one solution that they could solve a couple of problems. One of them being, better insulating the home, putting a new jacket on the home. Mm-hmm. And so there's some interesting thing to be considered, and factored into the pro forma of this renovation, whether or not it's going to make sense. But it's always evolving, the building code, and so it's just something to keep abreast of.
Yeah, and those changes are fairly recent, and they are adding additional costs to renovations for sure. They're worthwhile because of course energy efficiency always does pay off. It's the primary thing a guy should do when you're renovating. One of the primary things, I guess. So, yeah, no, that's all good. And in that, we talked about heritage. We've got a beautiful arts and crafts home coming up that we'll be listing here in the next week. That's probably one of the finest examples of arts and crafts in the city, I have to say. So stay tuned for that. Keep an eye out for that. It's a gorgeous house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to pause every time I drive by it. So
yeah.
It's just that nice.
Yeah. Well, I think that we'll keep it short and sweet this morning.
Keep it short and sweet. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Great weekend, everyone.